About 2 weeks ago, the remains of 215 children were found at Kamloops Indian Residential School. Yo, it's a giant. Canada has a dark history. Nowadays, Canada is known for, multiculturalism, everyone's accepted, all religions, all races and all that, right? But like all countries, Canada has a dark history. And part of that dark history is residential schools. So residential schools are kind of boarding schools that Indigenous children were forced to go to. And at these schools, the goal was to assimilate the children into, Canadian society, and basically whitewashing them, right? And many atrocities occurred at these schools. And I think it's also classified as a genocide because, the government and the church was trying to literally wipe out their existence, right? By trying to get rid of their history, their culture, their languages, because at these schools, these kids, they were banned from speaking their own language. They were, banned from practicing their culture. They were banned from, whatever religion they used to have, whatever, right? They were forced to Christianity. They were forced to, not speaking their own language. They couldn't even see their own parents sometimes, right? Because these were boarding schools. They couldn't get to go home after, right? They were forced to stay at these schools where tons and tons of abuse occurred, right? These kids were raped. They were, physically beaten, just mentally abused, just abused all over. And these schools existed for more than 100 years. The last school closed in 1996, if I'm not mistaken, which is literally 25 years ago. Right, 25 years ago, these schools still existed. Now, hopefully, the conditions got better as time went on, but the conditions at these schools were horrible, right? They were often underfunded also, so, maybe even some of the good people, at these schools, right? They couldn't even do anything because they did not have the equipment for medical issues, or there was not enough food at these schools, so many of these kids went malnourished. And to kind of just show how fucked up these schools actually were, the government officials were literally referring to these schools and the goal of these schools to kill the Indian in the child. That was a quote that they actually used, to kill the Indian in the child, right? Just imagine how fucked up that is, to just trying to wipe out, one's history, all of the rich history that, these First Nations had just thousands and thousands of years, before Europeans didn't even come to Canada, right? And if you think about it, since these schools went for 100 years, right? These schools existed for 100 years, that this is generational trauma. So the kids that actually survived the school, they would grow older and then they would have kids, and then their kids would be forced into the school and they would grow older and they would have kids, and so on and so on. And these schools would literally traumatize each and every one of them, and they couldn't even do anything to stop it because they were forced to go to these schools, right? They were forced to. And I think, it's just so much worse because, sometimes the school wouldn't even allow the kids to go home during the holidays, right? So these kids would just stay here for maybe even years without any contact with their family. And these schools were also built further away from the reserves so that it would be more difficult for the parents to actually meet their children. And honestly, I can't even describe the horrifying experience at these schools. Think about it. If you're a kid in the situation that you're forced to go to the school, as a kid, so you're away from your family, and then there's all these adults around you that are forcing you to do this, forcing you to do that, and you can't even speak your own language, you can't even practice your own culture that you're raised with. So all these new foreign things where you're just abused, right? Imagine being raped at a school and you have to go back to that school, or you can't even leave that school, so it's just every single day just getting raped, just getting beaten, just getting just imagine how that would affect a child, right? And these schools existed for 100 fucking years, more than 100 years. And just picture not knowing who you are and where you came from. Because, you can't even ask the elders, because guess what? The elders also went to these schools. So they were forced to forget about these things. And it really is just tragic. And, the 250 children that were found, at the residential school in Kamloops, just makes you think, 215 children, right? That's probably not even all of them. right? Because maybe there's like a different burial site, or maybe some were just cremated, or or like many of the children actually ran away themselves, right? And these are like just 215. These are just like the ones that were killed, right? Like just think of the ones that were abused, but like survived. And honestly, that's why I'm even kind of talking about it, because I think people often forget just how terrible these schools actually were. And I just wanted to like talk about it because we should remember this because it is a part of history. But yeah, that was the video, and thank you guys for watching. Peace.